I'm in the present, no judgment, I'm here now. I'm in the present, no judgment.
Welcome, everyone, to Here in the Now podcast with your host, JG Larochette. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. This is episode 2 of our podcast, where educator wellness is the key. We make this for educators. I'm an educator, for principals and leaders, so we can really build the mental and emotional health together, both for ourselves, for our students, and for our communities. So welcome back to Here in the Now. This week, we're going to be focusing on holding space for ourselves and holding space for our youth. As you all know, as educators out there, holding space is a very important thing we do. And in terms of the way we hold space in so many different ways. But really, we're talking about the emotions, the thoughts, the experiences we're holding and having every day. And then, of course, the creation of those holdings with our students, right? So some of us are educators in elementary. We have constant emotions in front of us. We are emotional bodies, and our young people are going to have them, right? They're going to have them often. And more, we see that they come out in different ways, right? So when we talk about holding space, let's talk about what that really means. For me, as an educator, I always thought it meant that I have to be aware of all the things around me, my students, what's happening in the moment, where they're paying attention, where they're attuned, where they're not, be ahead of the game a little bit, right? How much does that resonate for you, right? Being aware of this big group of students. In elementary, we got the 30 students or so, and in middle and high school, we might have 35, 40 or more, right? And every day we have multiple opportunities to explore what being this human experience is in community with young people. What I realized, though, over the years of teaching 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade is that I was really focused on the external aspect of what was happening in the space. And while I was pretty good at that, and I think my young people felt that I was aware of their needs and what was happening for them, that didn't necessarily mean that I was meeting my own needs and that I was aware enough of what was arising in me. And so that's really the focus that I'm putting on today. How do we hold space for ourselves? How to become mindful in our own experience? So then when we're holding space for others, we're actually in a balanced state of being present, being attuned, but also first being attuned to ourselves, to what's happening here, and then attuning to how that relates to the group around us, the students, or if in a staff meeting or with our families, right? Being in space as a leader, as an educator, means that you're also creating that space with your young people. And that's the key, right? That if we try to create the space for them, they're often going to resist it because they're going to feel like, well, this isn't space that I belong to, or I'm a part of, or I'm a voice of. And I think that's just the ultimate aspect of creating a classroom culture, a school culture, is that everyone feels that they belong. Everyone feels heard and their needs met. But how hard is that? We're talking about 25 to 30 students. We're talking about different subject periods in middle and high school, rotating every 45 minutes. So how do we create that space really starts with us. And that was the lesson learned in my career in education, in teaching young folks, and then realizing, wow, I'm burning out because I'm doing all that, meeting the needs of young folks as much as I can, but I was burning fumes, and then I wasn't taking care of my needs or being attuned to what was happening inside of me. So then that real burnout, that disconnection, that lived experience where the emotions internally took over for me. And then, of course, we have mirror neurons, right? So if we go into a classroom and we're grounded and we're present, we're joyful, the young folks around us are going to cultivate that with us. If we come in burned out, tired, exhausted, emotionally drained, our young people are going to reflect that. So check in with yourself right now, right? It is episode 2 of Here in the Now podcast, where wellness for educators is key. And this might have been already the start of your school year, or you recently are getting back to get the classroom ready, starting school in a week or 2 or a couple of weeks. So think about last year for yourself. If you were in a classroom, if you were a leader, how much did you nurture those needs to be met, the emotional needs, the physical, the internal needs that you needed to be met? How much were you aware of those? And how internally aware where you on a pretty daily experience and doing things to support those needs. Maybe a lot, right? And maybe very little. We know that as people of service, we often focus on all our stakeholders, our young people, the families, the teachers, right? We're really trying to be of service. But like we know, and they say it in the airplanes, right? If you don't put the oxygen mask on first, you're not going to be even there to support and help your young one or your neighbors. So this is the time that we want to create together in making sure that we're filling ourselves up, we're nurturing, we're resetting, and we're taking these practices and ideas into action on a daily experience. So wherever you are in that trajectory of like daily, you're processing, you're resetting, you're attuning, you're living into your whole humanity, or you're pushing through and going hard and pushing and pushing and pushing just to try to survive. Either reality, we don't judge it. But the best part of here in the now is we literally can rewire, rechange, change new architecture, and be in a new experience with ourselves every moment. That's the beauty of mindfulness. And then once we take it to that inner level of, oh, I'm with these emotions, that student doing that triggers this response. Is it a response? Is it a reaction? Am I in this survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, as I'm in front of my young people? Or am I able to pause, take a look at whatever that, variable, whatever that thing was, that trigger, and how did I first navigate it internally? And then how did I externally communicate that and build it? Stress response, fight, flight, freeze is a reaction. Usually that means the person we're dealing with, if it's an adult or a kid, they're going to sense that and then they're going to go into their reaction, right? How much of us know that, right? Hey, young man, sit down, be quiet, or need you to do this. And then there's like this resistance, this pushback, this fight, verbally, right? Hopefully not so much physical, but that's out there too. So we're practicing these wellness, these mindfulness and compassion techniques so we can fill ourselves up, be resourced, understand how to navigate them, and then we can build that with our young people. So I always say, you're first a mindful educator before you're a mindfulness educator. To be able to embody that responsiveness, that internal processing, that non-reaction, that non-deflection. I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm not even close to where I want to be, right? Always the practitioner. But I'm way further along than I used to be because daily practice. So holding space for ourselves and holding space for others starts with ourselves. And then that exudes into our classrooms, into our ecosystems, into our schools, into our meetings. And we do that with a community of practice. Because at the end of the day, holding space is not about one person. It's about the group, the team, the class. And the more we practice individually, the more we connect together. So one of the main things I've learned in my mindfulness practice, right? Paying attention on purpose to the present moment with a full welcoming of this lived experience is how important it is to understand, be in touch, welcome our emotions. So what are some of those things for you? What are those emotions that when you're teaching and you start noticing that space not feeling where you want it to be integrated? What are some of those emotions that arise for you? Is it anxiousness? Is it fear? Is it frustration? Maybe it's layers, right? A lot of times when we start working on emotional intelligence and mindfulness, we realize, wow, the core emotion was below that, right? So for me, when I was trying to create space with young people that felt that way, and there was variables, either I wasn't doing what I thought I could do, or young people weren't buying into it. Underneath that is fear, right? Frustration might come out, anger might come out externally, but under that was this, oh, wow, I don't have control. I am losing control. So in mindfulness, the more we understand our emotions and welcome them and befriend them, the more we can be in our prefrontal cortex and activate the self-regulation and the being present again, and not go into reaction and stress mode with cortisol and adrenaline, all our stress hormones. So today, our mindfulness practice is going to be mindful emotions. Okay, we're going to focus on mindfulness as paying attention with emotions, and when we get distracted, we can always gently, without judgment, come back. That's the practice. And the key for mindful emotions is that there isn't good and bad emotions. There are emotions as they are. And usually those emotions that we see as the enemy, for me, it was anxiety, is actually the emotion that we need to befriend more and become best friends with. That was my lesson. Now anxiety shows up. I'm like, there you are. Thank you for joining again. Let's get to know each other one more time. What are you here to teach me? So that's going to build that emotional intelligence so that when anxiety rises now, it's not stress response, amygdala, right? Flagging, uh-oh, something dangerous is happening. It's an emotion. Emotions don't hurt me. Emotions are just part of this human experience. So we're going to notice emotions. We call it name it to tame it. We're going to just let emotions come, be with them, have compassion, welcoming. And then if they stay a little longer, curiosity, no judgment. And if they go, like clouds in the sky. Emotions, thoughts, they come and go and pass by. So let's get to practice in Here in the Now podcast. We'll start with our mindful seated position. You can go ahead and repeat after me if you'd like, the way we do at Mindful Life Project. I've got my feet on the floor. I've got my spine in a line. I've got my hands in my lap and my heart to the sky. And the offering and invitation is allowing the eyes to close. That's so we can really go inwardly with minimal distractions of the external world. But if that doesn't feel comfortable, a soft gaze below is always available. We're going to start as we always do with mindful listening. So try to stay with the sound of the bell as long as it goes for. And so the sound might be there for shorter or longer, but how are we able to tune into the present moment with the sound? So paying attention on purpose, specifically and strategically in the here and now, without judgment. So as you arrive, welcome yourself, welcome your mind. If it's having lots of thoughts, lots of to-do lists, future, past, let it be and just welcome it. No judgment. Notice the body and let it arrive. Let it sink a little more and just notice what it's telling us without judgment. And then just check into the heartscape. So wherever you are in this day, whatever's been going on, mindfulness is about cultivating that compassionate lens of awareness. So as we're entering our practice and noticing our experience, let's just cultivate a little bit of mindful breathing to really sink in and drop into the here and now. Just notice the inhale and the exhale. Just tracking it like you track your favorite show, your favorite song, your favorite book, just watching it, not needing to change or be any different. Noticing the in, the pause, and the out. And just noticing if there's any change in the breath. Mindfulness is not about having to do anything or change anything. It's just allowing what's here to be here with compassion. Inevitably, thoughts will pop up, will take us away into a train of association. Emotions might arise. Physical sensations will come up. And those aren't things to change or fix. They're just little notes, little messages. Oh, that's calling our attention. And without judgment, we gently come back to our focus. So see if you can just stay with one more cycle of breath from the beginning, middle, and end. And now we're going to shift awareness to mindful emotions, noticing, naming them, curious and where they show up. And really just playing with the befriending and welcoming. There you are. We are not our emotions. We are not our thoughts. They're the experience of this human beingness. And we can watch these experiences. We don't get entangled by them. Lost in the fog of the stress response, the wishing it were different, the wanting it to be a different way. We can come back to welcoming. Here is this full human experience as it is. So like you're sending yourself little text messages maybe, or making little post-it notes. Just start in the next minute or so, naming the emotions that are arising or the spaciousness without emotions, without needing it to be a certain way. And then noticing if there is a resistance and just noticing without judging that. Well, there's an emotion that has been avoided, neglected, pushed away for many, many years, maybe. This is new, maybe. This trying to welcome, befriend with a compassionate heart. And just like anything, it takes the cultivating, the tending to, the continued practice without needing to wish it were different. And as we come to the end of focusing on mindful emotions with this compassionate heart, see what has shifted or stayed the same. And then the true companion to mindfulness is heartfulness, compassion, self and others. So as we close today on this holding space, creating space, engaging in community, may you just hold compassion within your whole being. If you'd like to place your hand in your heart, we can go through our little heartfulness. Just know that you're human. We are human. We're learning. We're growing. And we have that past experience that maybe has conditioned us to avoid, neglect, push away, resist. Being with ourselves and being with ourselves in a whole new radical way, that befriending and loving our full humanness. We'll close practice with the sound of the bell as long as it goes. And as you open your eyes or come back into the space, just check in a little bit again. Mind, same as it was 8 minutes ago. Heart, same or different. Body, where are we at? All of it without judgment. That's the best part of the practice. We cannot do this wrong. So holding space, creating space, being in community, being with all the emotions that happen. There's been never a better cultivating ground than being an educator to practice mindful emotions, mindfulness, to be with ourselves and with our students in a very engaged, compassionate, and human way. And creating space doesn't involve one, it involves all that are in that space. And the more we practice these practices, the more we use them in our daily experience, the more we build that sense of belonging for self and others. And then guess what? Everything goes from there. We can make our education system, our schools, our places, the place we know we deserve, we know our students deserve, our families, our communities. And many of you, shout out to so many of you, are doing that on a daily basis. So today, our episode here in the Now podcast was on holding space for ourselves and our youth. I hope that you have comments and feedback for us here so we can keep on building this community. May you share this. You can find us on Mindful Life Project TV on YouTube, on Anchor and Spotify, on the apps. We are building this community together. Thanks again for all you do as educators. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be filled with peace. May you be filled with love. May you find deep sense of belonging. Be well, everyone. See you next week. Thank you again. You've been at Here and the Now podcast with JG Larochette, the Mindful Life Project.
I'm in the present, no judgment. I'm here and now.